The Collective Whisper Podcast with Simon King. Welcome everybody to the Collective Whisper Podcast, and today I have Mr. Domhnall O'Donoghue. Domhnall is from Navan. He is an actor, a writer, a print journalist as well as many other things, and he's here to talk to us today about his life and personal journey so far. Welcome to the show, Domhnall.
Thank you so much. Delighted to be here with you.
How are you?
I'm good. We're a couple of days away from Christmas now, so I've last minute shopping to do. I have food to eat and wine to drink, so I'm looking forward to the next few days.
Yeah, where will Christmas be this year? Where are you living in?
I'm living in Dublin, so I'm here in Dublin at the moment, but my family is from Navan, which is only 30 miles up the road from here. So we'll go up there on Christmas morning or maybe Christmas Eve for a couple of days.
And obviously with the restrictions and everything, it's 6 to a house, isn't it, or something for Christmas?
It is, and you know, I have a brother. I've got two brothers, but one of them lives in Holland, and they've gone into lockdown. So there was hope that he might be able to come back, but that's not going to happen this year. Daglon is his name, and I kind of feel sorry for Daglon because he is living alone in Holland, and he probably out of all of us was, you know, the one who loved kind of family celebrations, Christmas celebrations, and the crack and the banter of all of that. So it'll be difficult this year, although we'll Zoom him. So we're going to have a seat at the table and we'll Zoom. So it's all very surreal.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because just when you were saying about the Zoom, I'm thinking the last week I'm seeing these Christmas parties with the Zoom calls, and you're kind of like, how does that even work? I mean, how do you get pissed and embarrass yourself in front of your boss on Zoom?
I know. But isn't it crazy though, just how quickly we all adapted to this world of, you know, being kind of forced indoors? But I know often we can kind of be somewhat critical of technology and social media and all the rest. But in years like this, it really just goes to show how amazing it is to keep the world united and, you know, keep families together. And because loneliness, it's an awful thing, you know, to have to kind of deal with. And so that was my feeling about my brother, that, you know, he'd get a bit lonely because of the day that's in it. Because this is the first, you know, he's 42 or something, 41. This will be the first year in all his life where he hasn't celebrated. And I know there's so many people around the country and around the world in a similar situation. So I am praising the likes of Zoom at the moment. I think it's wonderful.
What I think is, imagine if this had happened, you know, 10 years ago, before the internet was kind of as it is, much better. I mean, if we didn't have the internet now, the world would be a very dark place. I mean, you'd be locked in your house. You wouldn't be able to do anything.
Absolutely. And I've just come back from Connemara, where I was filming Rustaroon, and I know a lot of families there whose parents, grandparents would have left the likes of Connemara or, you know, rural parts of Ireland, not even rural, all over Ireland. And they'd be dependent on letters, sending each other letters, parcels. And the kind of, imagine kind of thinking in 20, 30, 40 years' time that we'd be able to actually see each other. Like, you're in Spain, right, at the moment? But I'm in Dublin. It's crazy that we can have this chat now. Whereas 30, 40 years ago, you know, we'd have had to be dependent on writing little letters and popping them in the postbox.
Yeah, if you went back 30 years ago with this technology, people would think you were either an alien or there's something had happened. They wouldn't believe it. They'd be like, no, this can't be possible. I mean, there's no way my brother in America can speak to me like live instantly. It's just not possible. But I mean, it is crazy how, and the technology is being pushed further every day. And you know, it's mad though. I mean, all the people now spending Christmas over Zoom is going to be crazy.
Crazy. And by coincidence, I'm actually watching a TV show on Netflix called The Cable Girls, set in Madrid. I don't know if you've heard.
Oh, yes. I've never watched it, but I've heard a lot about it, yeah.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. The production values are fantastic. But it's all about, you know, the telephonists back in the 20s and 30s and the start of all of that. And it's just crazy to think that back then, you know, it was still a luxury to be able to call somebody, you know, and it was saved kind of for those who had money and, you know, influence. But now we just think of it, 80, 90, 100 years later, that we can do this, and for free.
And for free, yeah.
But there's very little cost, that we
No. It's much easier. Like, you remember when you tried to make international calls one time, and you'd be putting the 50 pence pieces in the phone box, and it was impossible. And even then, on your phone, if you were trying to make international calls, and you're like, this is going to cost me a fortune. But now, because of the computers and internet, we can do so many things free over the net. No.
It's amazing. It's really amazing that it's so accessible now. Although it doesn't mean, if we don't want to talk to somebody, we don't have many excuses.
So, Donna, let's go back a little bit in time. And you mentioned that you're from Navan. So tell us about your early life in Navan. You were born in Navan, and your parents are from there?
No. I was born in Dublin, actually, and in Hollis. Well, it's just because we don't have a maternity hospital in Navan. So people from Navan are either born in Dublin or Drogheda. So it's kind of in the middle. So it's one or the other. So I was born in Hollis Street in Dublin. My parents, no, they're not actually originally from Navan at all. My father is from Clare. He grew up in Clare, and my mother grew up in Longford.
Okay. What part of Clare is your father from?
Curra Clare.
Curra Clare. Okay. Yeah.
So the beautiful East Clare, and my mother is from Longford, and they got married. They met in Dublin, and they had their first two children, my older siblings, and then they moved to Navan. Before my brother, who I was talking about just recently in Holland, back in 81, I think. So I came along in 82. So I'm totally Navan, 100%.
Wow. How many people are in your family? How many brothers and sisters do you have?
6 in total. Four siblings. And we're all beginning with D. So the 4 Ds.
You're all D. You're like the Kardashians of Navan.
Absolutely, yes. We were there well before the Kardashians. Yeah, absolutely. They robbed that from us. Yes, so we're Dara, Deirdre, Declan, and Domhnall. 4 Ds.
Wow. That's actually, it's funny, isn't it? Because that whole idea, when someone says, we'll do all Ds or whatever, and I can imagine conversations your parents probably had where your mum was like, no, I don't want any more Ds now. Let's change it to a B. And your dad is going, no, we're sticking with the Ds. We'll be consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. And more than likely, it probably was my father, because he is like that. Once he gets something into his head, he really commits.
What's your father's name?
Sean and Maura. Yeah, Sean and Maura. So we don't know where they came up with the D thing.
So he wasn't a D. He was a Sean, but he wanted the Ds.
Yes. Yeah, because we're O'Donoghue, so we're 4 Dodds.
Okay, yeah. Because I went to school with a guy, and his name was Declan Donoghue, but but I don't think he ever went. I'm not sure that he ever comes up Declan O'Donoghue, because obviously the Irish and the English pronunciation of the name. But it reminds me of a story. When I was younger, I used to play rugby for a while, and I used to play in the Corinthians club in Galway, and there was a guy there training with us, right? And his name was Dara McDonough, okay? And what was really strange was his father had the same name, okay? So that was fine. They were both Dara McDonough or whatever. But the weird thing was they moved house, and the street they moved to was McDonough Avenue or McDonough Lane or something. So he was Dara McDonough of McDonough Avenue. And I said, and your dad has the same address. So it was like, wow, that's overload. The postman is getting really confused.
Absolutely. And by coincidence, the little road I lived in Spiddle was called Bala on Domhnall. So, yes, so I was tickled pink when I found that was called.
Well, the difference is that you're all starting with D, whereas when you look at the Kardashians, they're starting with K, but a lot of their names actually start with C, but they changed it to K.
Yes, I think there's the Chloe, I think, with the K, and
there are Courtney K, and so I think they just switched it around to make it more modern. But yours is original, the D. So a big family, so 6 of you. Where are you in the family? Are you in the middle or youngest or second youngest?
Yeah,
you're the youngest.
The youngest.
Ah.
Yeah. The youngest.
Wow. And your brothers and sisters now, are they all around Ireland? Were you one brother in Holland? Are the rest of them?
By coincidence, I'm the only guy left. I'm actually the only person here in Ireland. So my 2 siblings, two oldest siblings, they live in London. Daglon is in Holland, and then I'm here. And funny enough, growing up, I would always have thought it would be me who would be the one who went abroad. But no, I'm here in Ireland, and which is one, the year that's in it. It's been great that I have been here. My parents, as I say, Navan is just up the road from Dublin, and even though we didn't get to see each other all that often because of the restrictions, it was just always very reassuring for them and for me to know that we were close by, should anything have happened. And then this Christmas, I am able to go home, and I'll be spoiled rotten because I'll be the only one there. So
you'll be the only one there. Your mother be trying to give gravy to the Zoom camera, but I'll take it. I'll take his portion of gravy.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to bring my comfortable trousers.
The track pants for home. Those kind of comfortable clothes. And tell me, so when you were growing up in Navan, what was Navan like? Because obviously Navan, it's not a huge place. Well, I'm sure it's pretty big now, but you have a lot of people like Hector O'Huckagon and Tommy Tiernan from Navan, no?
We do, and Dylan Moran.
And Dylan Moran, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a great reputation actually in Navan for comedy and comedians and the art, surprisingly. And music as well. And, Navan has changed a lot. I'm sure there'll be people who would have lived there before my time who would say it's changed even more again. But it definitely in my lifetime, like I'm 38 now, and it's changed a lot. The heart remains the same. The energy is the same. The people remain the same. But because obviously of its close proximity to Dublin, so many new people came to Navan because of, housing prices. It was a little bit more affordable. So a lot of our suburbs, places where I used to, build tree houses and get up to all sorts of shenanigans while I was a teenager, they're all housing estates now. And housing estates, and then big new schools and a lot of, factories and industrial sites and stuff. And so it's grown a huge amount. It's grown, and obviously, a town that grows, particularly that speed which Navan has, your hope is that the heart will remain the same, and it has. The town centres, really come on. Beautiful restaurants, pubs. There's a real kind of eclectic vibe there. Although you wouldn't be able to tell that because of the year that's in it. But it's a great spot, and I think they're really tapping into the tourism potential that Meath has. Meath is the Royal County. We have two of the most, iconic sites in Ireland there. We have Newgrange and Tara. And obviously the Boyne River goes through it, and that's just, peppered with history. So that's something that's really exciting for me because I write a lot in the world of tourism. So I've always been singing the praises of Navan and County Meath. So it's great to see that that's now being developed and expanded more. Because I do think, because of COVID, a lot of people now are looking for opportunities to travel within Ireland. Often before, we just booked that fly and flop destination off to Spain, whatever it was, packed the bags, and because we wanted the sun, it's rains so often here in Ireland, so of course we needed a bit of sunshine. But now, because of what's happened, we're now looking at places within Ireland, and I know personally, a lot of my travel writing this year focused on Irish destinations. And, I went to places that I haven't been to in years, like Longford, for example. I say my mother's from Longford. I haven't been to Longford since my grandmother left, which was going back to the early 90s. So that's almost, 30 years ago. And I went back for the first time to write about it. And I was really taken by, how many beautiful places there were to see in Longford. And I was talking to a lot of people there who said so many people arrived in Longford this year for the first time ever. And they're like, I never realised you had these facilities, these places. Like there's a pathway there, in the bog that dates, thousands of years old, and there's wonderful things. The countryside, Abbey Shrule, like they've won so many Tidy Town awards there, and the village is absolutely beautiful. So that's one of the silver linings, I think, of this year, that we get an opportunity to kind of look closer to home, at our doorstep. What's there. So go to.
For me, I've been planning now, but because of COVID, me and my wife have been planning for next year, and now it's going to be, is kind of just getting a camper van and going around Ireland, because there's so many things that people say, oh, have you been there? And I'd say, I haven't actually been there yet. And then you think it's a shame because I'm from Ireland, but let's say I've never been to the Giant's Causeway. So, and then Spanish people are saying to me, you've never been there? And I'm like, no. And it's funny because when I'm living in Spain, Spanish people go all over Spain and around, but they always see a lot of their own country. And in Ireland, we don't do that enough. I mean, so
No.
people do it more now, but there's a lot of people in Ireland who will say to you, "Oh, I've never been to Newgrange, or I've never been to the Glendalough, or whatever." So I think it's time we start kind of exploring within the country more, no?
Absolutely. And, if you look at the statistics, the top 5 counties in Ireland, Dublin, Galway, where you're from, Cork and Clare. And very understandably, why Dublin obviously will be number 1, but then, the beauty of those other counties. But there's so much beauty elsewhere. And like, County, I was talking to somebody myself the other day who said she'd never been to Newgrange, and very telling, today, obviously the longest or the shortest day of the year, the 21st. And so that's obviously, very much associated with Newgrange and, the winter solstice and all the rest. And so it's lovely seeing Newgrange, on the news and in the papers at the moment. But Meath is wonderful. And, there's so many beautiful spots. Like Roscommon was another county that I discovered, not for the first time I've been there, of course, but properly discovered as a tourist, as opposed to just kind of visiting someone or driving by. So yeah, I think it's wonderful that people do like what you're going to do, get the camper van. And I know I've talked to a few people there recently who own caravans, Caravan Park, one of them. And, she was saying this, it's so lovely to see Irish people come and visit. Often she would be dependent, or the business would be dependent on foreigners coming over, British Americans. And she goes, this year we had so many Irish people. So that's lovely, and I think it's really important that we know our own country before we get to know other countries. We're a good country.
Yeah, I mean, we've great heritage, and not to mention the myths and the legends of Ireland. There's so many great stories there, and I'm really excited about visiting places. And like you said, Newgrange, and saying to my kids, "Oh, this is older than the pyramids," and they'll be like, "How could that be? That can't be true." And you're like, "No, it's true." And then people say, "Never believe an Irishman,"
Yeah.
So listen, so tell us, just go back to Navan. When you were growing up in Navan, did you feel at one with Navan at that time? Did you feel like you were happy there, you enjoyed it, or were you always kind of itching to get out of it and spread your wings?
No, within Navan, I explored huge amount of opportunities for, actors. Like I was involved in speech and drama. I was involved in the drama group, dance group. I did violin. Like there's so many opportunities available for me, which I'm so grateful for. They were very much this, very informative years. They were kind of the stepping stones for me. So I had a wonderful time in that. But I think a lot of towns in Ireland got, a bad rap, that, they mightn't be supportive of the arts or whatever it is. I never found that with Navan. I had so many opportunities. My weekly schedule, every day I had something. And I can't even believe my parents had 4 children, and each and every one of us had these crazy itineraries every week, going off doing all these extracurricular activities. And they're able to facilitate that and support that. So I had a wonderful time in Navan. And, my 2 best friends, I have 2 best friends. I met Ruth, the first one, in play school, and I met the other one in baby infants, and they've been my friends through life, Eamon and Ruth. And, so I have a huge amount of friends there to this day. So, of course, everybody would have had a few hairy moments growing up. That's something everybody can identify with. But looking back now, any issue I would have had, I've completely made my peace with. I only look back, with fond memories. As I say, I have so many friends, from my childhood still very present in my life. My parents are still there, and they love the town, and they're very much part of the community, very active in the community. It was a great town. And of course, its proximity to Dublin always helped. The weekend we could always, hop on the bus and come up to Dublin and go to theatre and go to museums or whatever.
Did when you mentioned the arts there, like at that age when you were 12, 13, 14, was there a lot of good arts facilities, and was there a lot of good drama workshops and everything in the town?
It's improved a lot. We had this wonderful new art centre now called the Solstice, but that wasn't there in my day. Like that happened just after I had left. So it's a wonderful building, and it welcomes the best musicians, the best theatre companies, the best artists. But before that, there was a lot of, community centres scattered around town that would then double as, a venue for the local drama groups or the local dance groups or whatever it was. So there were a lot of facilities there, not as high tech and, high end as now as today. But yeah, no, we were never left wanting at all.
No. Did you, when you were in Navan, as a teenager growing up, did you have like summer jobs, or did you work there, or did you wait until you went to college to kind of look for work? What kind of summer jobs did you have?
Well, during the summers, actually, we went away quite a lot.
Okay.
My mother was a teacher, so her holidays aligned.
Oh, right. Okay.
And then my father would kind of save his holidays for the summer. So we'd kind of disappear for, 5-6 weeks each summer.
Oh, brilliant. Very nice.
It was wonderful. We went obviously to Go, Namara, Clare, where my dad's from, down to Valentia Island, in Kerry, which is where we stayed for 2-3 weeks every summer. But it wasn't until a little bit later in life when I needed money, when kind of older teenager needed a few bob. That's when I started looking for some part-time work, and I worked in local bars, which is wonderful. Like when you're 16 years of age, being anyway is great crack. So it's always lovely then to get paid for it. So I had a few. My father's very active in the local GAA.
Yeah.
We have a very big football stadium there called Porthalton. And my dad got me a job as the scorekeeper. So
the scorekeeper, wow.
The big scoreboard. So I had to go up there 2-3 matches, depends on the day, and then just change. And
it wasn't digital either, I bet you.
Oh, gosh. But it meant that I had to really focus. I couldn't even Google like you could today. My scores right. So I had to watch, and I'm not the biggest fan at all of football, but I had to watch, and sometimes there would be disputes. Sometimes the flag would go up. Okay, that's the score. But then it might be disputed. And then I'd have some angry, fan of one team or the manager of another shouting up at me to change scores and all sorts. Yeah, there's a lot of drama there.
I can imagine you having the square piece of wood or whatever it was, the plaque or placard, and you're putting it in and it's halfway in and you're like, no, wait. And you're like, are you sure? Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so it was just a crazy gig to get. It was a crazy job. I got a few bob from it. It was just wonderful. Yeah, it was wonderful. So that's kind of how I paid my way during my teenage years.
Wow. And did you? Great job. Yeah, I've never met anybody who had that job, but it's a great job. Did you? At what age then did you move out of home? And did you go to Dublin, or where did you go to?
I did. Yes, I was 17. 17, and I went to Trinity, which is how I know you, because obviously your sister Andrea was in my...
Yeah, I just explained to the listeners, I first met Domhnall through my sister Andrea, and Andrea is an actress as well, and her and Domhnall studied together in Trinity, and that was 2000, 2001, or...
That was 2000, yeah, 2000, 2001, 2003, it's a 3-year course. So it was 20 years ago when we first started back in October. So I left, relatively early. And it was a crazy transitional time. The course, it was an acting course, and it's something I had always wanted to do, since I first discovered it. I discovered it when I was about 14. I went, I was researching what I was going to do in college, and I discovered, I said, I have to get a place in that course. But it's obviously very, very competitive, as you can imagine. But somehow I managed to convince them to allow me in, and there were only 14 of us to begin with, and that was whittled down to 12. So 12 of us graduated 3 years later. So it was a crazy time, and it's a time that I'm kind of looking back on a little bit more now, particularly when I made that realization. That was 20 years ago since I first, walked through Front Arch, and when you're 17, it's a very young age. And I'm learning about life, and then I'm kind of thrown into this course that's, it was very overwhelming at times because, our itinerary was so jam-packed. We were in at 9 o'clock, we were there till 6, 7 every day. There were very few other people that I knew, in third level who had that kind of jam-packed schedule. Most of them were in for 10 hours a week, and even then that was kind of at a push, but with us we were in 50-60 hours a week, but it was wonderful, all these amazing tutors and these amazing like classmates, like your sister. They were just, as good as it gets. And coming from Navan, I was very, very active in the drama scene, but I was very much, a big fish in a small pond. And then you go to Dublin and you realize, well, hold on, okay, you're working with like, the big guys here. And so it was very humbling as well, very humbling experience, but it was wonderful. It was wonderful. Yeah. I look back very fondly.
Have you gone back many times, like through the front arch, as you said, to visit those old? I remember just, going with Andrea and going to like where you'd study and seeing your small theatres and this kind of stuff. And I mean, Trinity itself is such an overwhelming place. It's so big and there's so many people there and people from around the world. But, even visiting it can be a bit intimidating. But when you're going there as well, I'm sure it's crazy.
It's just absolutely stunning campus. It's world class, and I know, people would have always used that as a kind of a landmark to meet. I meet at front arch, meet, and so no, I'd often wander around the campus and then recall those wonderful days. By coincidence, when we were in first year, we were devising a show, and we were based in the Samuel Beckett Centre. So there's a beautiful theatre there, beautiful dance studio, but there's also small little studios that kind of ran parallel to Pearse Street. And we were divided up into groups. And by coincidence, I was actually working with Andrea, your sister, and we did some research. And we researched the actual studio that we were rehearsing in. And it was 191 Pearse Street is what it was called. And so we were searching ourselves. So we all brought in our birth certs, and then I just made this connection. My birth cert, and I'm sure everyone around that time's birth cert, was stamped and registered in 191 Pearse Street. So that studio was now our rehearsal studio, was once where all the birth certs, including mine, used to get stamped. And I just thought, this is just crazy.
That is mad.
Yeah, it's crazy. So it was a lovely, lovely campus, like the Samuel Beckett Theatre. It's won so many international awards. It's just wonderful. So it was such an amazing opportunity. It was such a blessing to have been given that opportunity to work there for 3 years. And there's something very safe about it as well, because obviously when you move into the acting world, you don't know where your next gig is coming from. You don't know where your next book is coming from. But there was something lovely about being a student for 3 years. Although, calling ourselves a student, I don't know if that's, very accurate, because I don't think I ever felt like I was a student in comparison to my other mates who, as I say, were, arts or whatever, other degrees. Because it's a very different dynamic. Like, I don't think we were that involved with, let's say, the societies, the Phil Society or whatever society. We were very much kind of in our own little cocoon.
Yeah, and it's a different thing, isn't it? Because obviously, I know that term people use, the lovies, the drama world, and I mean, it's a very social scene, isn't it? Because you meet all types of people, and it doesn't matter if somebody is involved in an amateur dramatic society or a musical society. When you go to those nights out, it's like, people say, oh, when you're in a musical because everybody's singing and that's just in the bar, So I remember going to one or two kind of parties and after drinks things of your shows, and it's full on, isn't it? It's so intense sometimes.
Yes, it can be full on, and you'd often joke to another actor, "Go, just get off the stage, will you?" Because often they can't distinguish between the professional stage and the world, and they'll always be on. They'll always, have a story to tell or a joke to say or whatever it is, and so I can imagine for other people, it can be a little bit overwhelming when you're in the company of a bunch of actors. I know a lot of my friends, who were in college at the same time. They'd be like, whoa, you really need to kind of be battle ready when you came out with us of a night out. I think, but if you can that side, if you can accept that element, actors are wonderful. They're wonderful people. They're flawed, of course. Like, we're all flawed, and we all battle with our own insecurities, our own struggles, and all the rest. But actors, they're good people. Yeah, we have.
When you finished your degree, was there a point where you thought, okay, I'm going to continue doing this, or maybe I'm going to do something else? Was it something that you thought, no, I'm in this for good now, or I'm not sure about it?
It's a really interesting question, and it's something that, I talk about quite a lot. Like when I graduated from college, and even, before I went to college and in college, I was very linear in my worldview. I was very much insistent that the only thing I wanted to do ever was act, and anything else is distraction. And then I graduated, and then I realized early that, hold on a second, no matter how successful you are as an actor, no matter how talented you are as an actor, it's essentially a part-time job. There will always be these times where you won't be working, or you'll be waiting to work, or you'll be doing, auditions or whatever it is. So not even just from a financial point of view, but just in terms of your own mental health and your own mental well-being, it's really important to have other ways of being creative. Whether that is gardening or baking or, in my case, writing. It's just really important to have something that you can call your own. Because when you are an actor, it can be quite disempowering. You're always dependent on other people's permission to be creative, whether that's an agent, a casting agent, a director, writer, whoever it is. So you're always waiting for them to say to you, okay, we can work, you can be creative. So I would always encourage people, no matter what stage of their career, to find other ways where you can be creative on your own terms. So for me, it was writing. I started off in journalism, and then I went and I did a master's in screenwriting, and then I started, writing books as an author. So these are all things I can do myself. And in terms of my own happiness, I've never been as happy, as content, as grounded, as rooted in the world as when I made that decision. And it's the best thing I've ever did, to have that awareness, that fluidity, to go, okay, I can still absolutely pursue acting 100%, but I'm not going to be blinkered, and I'm going to look for other opportunities. And I genuinely believe that I'm a much stronger actor because of my work as a writer, and I'm a much stronger writer because of my work as an actor. So no,
yeah,
the real answer,
they both help each other.
but they absolutely complement each other, and everything complements each other, and I know a lot of actors who are very, dogmatic about not having distractions. They just want to do the acting, and it's just, not possible until you get to that level. That's a very tiny percentage of actors who get to that level, and they're literally going from gig to gig to gig. But for the majority of us, that's just not the case. So, so that's why I would always encourage if a parent came to me and their children wanted to be actors, I'd absolutely encourage them to do so. But I'd also say, look, make sure you have, other lovely ways of earning a few bob, and, to be creative. You don't have to do something that you don't like doing. You can find, there's so many wonderful ways of being creative and being happy. You just need to kind of tease them out.
Yeah. All right. So let's go. So I was going to say to you there, I remember once talking with Andrea, and, I remember I met this other person who was an actor, and they were saying, how you could be in a movie or in a TV show, and then somebody meets you in the Dole office, and they're like, oh, I saw you on TV last week. And they're like, why are you here? They're kind of confused, but they don't realize that was maybe filmed a year before, and now you don't have much work. And this is the kind of life that for a lot of actors is the hard part. For musicians, for everybody, is that people kind of look at the success of something and think, oh, they're set for life, or, but it's a very tough world, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And, that's a really interesting example, because I do think a lot of people have these, preconceived conceptions of acting and the world of acting and the financial aspect of art. I've done, ads, and, taxi men have said, oh, you're in that ad. And they would assume, one thought, he goes, how much did you get for that ad? And I'm like, well, how much do you think I got for that ad? I had a few drinks. And, he thought that I got 100 grand for this. I can assure you, I did not get 100 grand. I got a couple of grand or whatever it was. But people could often think that if you are on television, that you're getting these crazy rates. But it's not the case. It's not the case at all. And particularly when you get that a little bit older in life, I know a lot of actors who have had to leave the game because, they've children, they've mortgages, there are other, needs in their lives, that just can't be supported by a career in the arts, which is heartbreaking. I've seen the best actors, the best artists, writers, journalists, slip away, because they just can't survive. And that is why, those gigs like a TV gig or an ad gig, it's a great way to kind of inject a few bob into the account. But no, the reality is you might film something and, it could be even repeated. I know this year, because of COVID, shows like Bachelor's Walk, they were, repeated clinic. Irish actors don't benefit from that. Other countries, if I get royalties from shows I did for the UK, BBC, I still get royalties. But in Ireland, it's a different situation, unfortunately. So,
Really? So as such in Ireland, for like the clinic and these kind of shows, it's not like because it's syndicated or whatever, the royalties don't come back to the actors.
If they do, it's very, very, very little. It's a different contract, so you get a buyout, and so that means that they can use and air it wherever and whenever they want. But in comparison to the UK and America, it's very much more supportive to actors in the long run. I did 10, 12 years ago abroad, and I get a check, and not much, like 30 quid thing. But it's been aired somewhere random, like Azerbaijan or somewhere, and I get a few bob. So, yeah, it's a funny old world, the financial aspect of the arts. And I know a lot of people, they don't go into the arts to become millionaires. They know exactly what it is. They just want to work. They just want to tell stories. They just want to live. They want to pay their rent or mortgage or whatever.
Yeah. And can I ask you, Donald, is it a thing in the acting world where you have this kind of thing where, so let's say, obviously, when you meet fellow actors and people you went to college with, and people that were in that network and in around Dublin, is it a thing that for an actor, if they meet an actor who's in a successful movie or something successful, does it knock your confidence if you don't have much at the time? Because, you can be like, oh, I went to college with them and they're really successful now and I'm only doing this small thing, or I'm doing nothing. I'm sure that can affect the confidence as well, no?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? It's a really good point. And it's something that I, again, identified early. Your closest of friends all of a sudden will be getting auditions, and you wouldn't have gotten a call to audition, or they'd get a gig. And I remember feeling, hold on, something's going to have to change here. I don't want to be resentful of my best friends who are getting gigs. I don't want that. And because the reality is there will always be other actors working when you're not working. So I made a decision. If I am going to continue in the world of acting, I'm going to have to completely accept and embrace the idea that everyone's on their own journey. And I can't compare myself to somebody else. And their success doesn't mean that's my failure. It's great that they're working and that they're getting an opportunity to tell stories and be a part of a great production, hopefully. But I can't use that as a mirror and say, oh, well, their success means that's my failure at all. And I've really remained true to that. So anytime I do hear of a pal, or I bump into somebody who is doing whatever it is, they're on the national stage or they're in a Hollywood movie, it's brilliant. And, and I'm delighted for them. But that's their journey, and I have my own journey, and I'm delighted with my own journey. And I'll obviously, come across bumps along the way, but they also will. We can often, think the whole, grass is greener and all the rest. We can often think that their worlds are fantastic, and they're not. So that's something one little lesson I learned to myself that I realized early: stop comparing, because it's just the nature of the game. Unless you want to avoid actors entirely, which is impossible. Every actor will have news. They'll have their good news. But then the other side of that as well, you can then get caught, you can get a little pleasure from other people's failures, or, you can find yourself gravitating towards negative people. And, having a bitch or having a moan about other people. But that's just absolutely futile. It might feel good in the moment, or to kind of have an out bitch about somebody, or, discuss a certain failure. Like, but that's just not a healthy way to live your life. So that's definitely something I identified early. And I wish more people would discuss that, would just the idea that, of course, it is difficult when you see somebody working and you're not working. We would all love to be working all the time, but that's just the hard facts, that people will work when you won't and vice versa. And you just have to find a way to embrace it.
And the thing is, in Ireland, you know, Irish people are great people and they're, you know, very welcoming and everything. But, you know, there's this word begrudgery that's sometimes in Irish society where, you know, you see when comedians make fun of it, you know, where someone gets a new car and you go, oh, you know, well, where, congratulations. And they walk away and you go, bastards, you know. So this, it's kind of envy. So it's something that we all have. But as you get older, you kind of have to say, well, look, it's not my time, and his success is nothing to do with my lack of success at the moment. So I have to wish him or her well, and just, you know, kind of hope that it's good karma. That I kind of feel now that the more I can help other people be successful by just, you know, sharing a post or, you know, helping them in some way, that's going to come back on me in some ways. And I think that's the way you have to look at it, no?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, I think that applies to, you know, almost every aspect in life, you know, to have an open heart and to support others. But, you know, the ego will always come in, and you'll have those voices in your head. And, you know, of course, you might go, well, hold on a second. Why are they getting all these gigs and I'm not? Does that mean that I'm not good enough or good looking enough or whatever it is? And you can form these narratives. And that's why, you know, for a lot of artists, you know, we would struggle with mental health issues every now and then, whether it's, you know, anxiety or depression or self-confidence, self-esteem. Often people think that we don't, because actors can often put on the, you know, the show, the jazz hands, and they'll be loud and they'll be all fun and fabulous. But there is the other side to acting, that little bit darker side, you know, where we would every day contend with mental health issues that are related to confidence and self-esteem. And that's why you have to find ways to overcome that. And that's why, you know, for me, writing became a very organic way of doing it. That, you know, I'll always have opportunities to be creative. I'll always have little ways of, you know, making myself feel proud about my achievements. That's not always the case in the world of acting, you know.
Yeah. So at the moment, you've just filmed Ross and Arun, and is this your 7th season or 6th or 7th season? No,
it's actually my ninth.
My ninth. Okay.
Yeah. 9th season for 10 years.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's such a wonderful gig to get, you know, because first of all, it's so it's a lovely opportunity to speak in Irish.
Yeah. Did you always speak Irish? Did you speak Irish before that?
Sure, yeah. All my family, we all went to the Gael School in Navan. So we were speaking Irish, you know, daily at school and at home. So, you know, when I went to college, my Irish slipped a little bit. But then as soon as I graduated, I got these wonderful opportunities to work in Irish, you know, with theatre companies and in television. So I always feel so blessed that I have essentially 2 careers running, you know, in tandem, in English and in Irish. So it was a wonderful, wonderful gig to get. And as well as that, it's filmed in Spiddal in Connemara, you know, and Connemara is one of the most beautiful regions in the entire world. So every time I go down, you know, we would film August to February. This year, the dates changed a little because of COVID. But I always felt like I was going down on my summer holidays, you know, because it's just so magnificent and so wonderful. So it's been a wonderful it's 9 seasons over 10 years. So it's been a wonderful 10 years. The people are just great, you know, they're just fun and professional and, you know, they're just great. I love them dearly. We have a hashtag, our social media team has a hashtag Clown Rusnaroon, which is the Rusnaroon family. And it very much is a family, and we're so supportive of each other. Like, you know, I launched my first book 4 years ago called Sister Agatha, and I had 2 launches. I was greedy. I had 2 launches, one in Navan and one in Scondoon department store in Connemara. And the entire team of Rusnaroon came out to support me, and they sang songs, they did readings, they danced. It was just one of the most magical days of my entire life, and it's something I will cherish forever. Just that absolute support. You know, if you had any problem, you could ring somebody and they will help you. Whether it's something as simple as giving you a lift to the shop while it was raining, or whether it's bigger than that, a life problem, an illness or something. There's just an extraordinary team there, and I love them dearly, and I feel very blessed that I have had these opportunities to kind of to be there in that environment, and to call them my friends, to call them my family. It's been great.
That's really nice. That's really nice. Explain to us, how it works when you go down there to film. Do you stay in Spiddle for a few days, and do they say to you, Domhnall, you have 2 days of shooting, or do you have to be kind of on standby all the time?
Well, there's two different contracts. There's a daily contract and a weekly contract. The majority of us would be on weekly contracts. So there are 23 or 24 filming weeks within that 6 month period. And then you'd get X amount of weeks. So you'd know your weeks. I'm going to be in for all of September, but I'm going to be off for the start of January or whatever. So you'd know. So what I would do is I would rent a little house there on Domhnall yes, in Spiddle. So I would uproot, and then I'd come back to Dublin if I had a couple of weeks off. Then I'd return. So so that's the structure. But there are actors there who would be on daily contracts, and then they'd know their days, and they'd come down and they might stay in a B&B or a local hotel or whatever it is. So yes, that's kind of the structure.
And is it like when you go down there and, in that kind of, is it the same as a lot of other soaps and things where you could be working for a few hours or you're rehearsing? How does the normal day be when you're down there?
There are no normal days. There are absolutely
no normal days
at all. Each week varies. You could have 6 scenes in 1 week. The next week you could have 30 scenes. Your day could be, you could have a free day, or you could be in at 8:30 and you could be wrapping at, 10 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night. So it really varies. Sometimes your character and your character story would be very central. And sometimes you'd be, in a supporting role, supporting other character stories. So it alternates. The last 6 weeks, my character has been very, very central. So I've had a crazy, wonderful, 6 weeks, but crazy hours. But it's always great, when your character is central in the storylines. And, I won't say anything about the storyline itself, but these past 6 weeks, I don't think I've ever felt as challenged. They've been wonderful, very emotional, a lot of tears and all this, and a lot of shouting and screaming and all the rest. But it's been wonderful. It's been really wonderful. And that's what's so extraordinary about being a part of a soap, is that you're always getting new stories. You're always getting these new opportunities, to be a comedy actor, to be a dramatic actor, or to be a physical actor. Rustaroon really kind of celebrates comedy. I know our audiences love a bit of comedy, a bit of quirkiness, and it's such an idyllic set.
Black humor, a little, yeah.
Absolutely, and they love it, and the thing that we have is so magnificent. Like Hollywood for years, have been making films about Connemara and rural Ireland and the beautiful vistas and stuff. So, as much as possible, we try and go out, whether it's down to the quays in Spiddle or up to the bogs or whatever it is. Of course, weather isn't always very supportive of, particularly in these winter months. Like, for example, we were filming last week down in the quay in Spiddle, and, it's going to transmit in April, which, April in Ireland is nice. We're filming it in the depths of winter, yet, our clothing would have to align with what characters wear in April, for example.
Really? Yeah. Really?
Yeah, so I couldn't.
Yeah, because I was going to ask you that question. How, if you're filming now, how long after does that air?
It's about 4 months, I think. It's about 4 months. It's about that, 3 to 4 months. Which is, again, crazy, because we'd have to film Christmas episodes, back in August, September. So we'd be surrounded by, Christmas trees and decorations, things like holidays like Paddy's or Valentine's weekend. And it's just always so bizarre, just your own senses kind of seeing all these, we're still in our...
But the weather must really get in the way, because, you know, like, it's like in Spain here, you see a picture of someone's house at Christmas in Marbella, and it looks the same as in June, maybe. You know, there's still sun shining. But as you said, if you're trying to do Christmas and it's the warmest weather in Ireland, people are like, that can't be Ireland at Christmas. That doesn't make sense.
I know it can be challenging at times, you know, filming scenes that are going to air, you know, in April, May, June, because we would transmit up until June, filming them in months like January. And, you know, as well, you know, being from Galway, Ireland, it's tricky. Weather-wise, it can be cold. But that, you know, we have an amazing costume department, and they go all out in trying to, you know, support the actors, you know, in terms of putting keep warms or putting, you know, heat packs in our shoes or in our pockets. And, you know, so it's only when we go for a take, we'd have to then just take all that off and then, you know, try and ignore the conditions. But, you know, it's that kind of support that often is unsung. You know, often when we look at, you know, TV or films, we kind of just, you know, focus in on the talent on screen. But it's the support that we, like, as I say, you know, from the hair, makeup to the costume, they're always finding ways to make it as easy as possible for us, you know, when we're on camera. And, you know, just thinking about those scenes I had last week down the quay, like, you know, our wardrobe department, Geraldine and Blo and Paula, they would just do everything to kind of keep us as warm as possible in those wintry conditions. So,
you're like the kids going to school on the winter morning.
Absolutely. We often joke that, like, you know, our mothers coming out and wrapping us up. And
yeah. I was going to say, probably in Ireland is one of the only countries that the film crews don't need a machine to make rain, or like these overhead hoses or whatever. They're probably like, no, we don't need to buy that. Within 5 hours, it'll be raining, guaranteed.
Yes. I heard somebody say to me once that Galway, it rains 200% more often than it does in Dublin. And I believe that, you know, I believe that. But it's the price we have to pay for the most beautiful virgin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what makes it so beautiful too, you know, the rain.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely.
So let's move on to your books, because, you know, now your latest book is your third book, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. It's called Crazy for You, and actually it's about a soap actor who works in an Irish soap hospital, and it's about a relationship he has with an overzealous fan, and it's there's different genres out there. You know, it's comedy, but there's a genre there called autofiction, which is a kind of a hybrid of autobiography and fiction. And initially, when I wrote the book, the main character was called Domhnall. The soap that he worked on was called Russ and Rune. My parents were my parents, my friends were my friends, and all the rest. And I wrote a draft, and I sent it to a pal of mine who's also a writer, and she's, you know, one of the few people I'd always asked to read like an early draft manuscript to get her thoughts. And the only person in that draft who was fictional was the fan, the frantic talker fan called Vonnie. And she said to me, my friend said to me, she goes, the only character that I believe is Vonnie. And I'm like, what? I'd written all these characters who were me, who were my parents. And she goes, it's really obvious that you don't want to offend anybody. So you're painting them in the best light possible. So everybody I was talking about, you know, were beautiful and intelligent. And as a reader, that's really, you know, uninteresting. You want dirt. You want to see these flawed characters. And it was a real kind of, you know, wake-up call for me that, you know, I have to get these characters to be a little bit dirty and a little bit kind of, you know, nuanced, rather than just, you know, angelic.
To have flaws.
Absolutely. And by God, I have many flaws, but they weren't coming across. And, you know, anyway, so I made a big decision then to kind of, to move away from autofiction. So then everybody became a fictional character. You know, I became Clooney, and now, of course, anybody who reads it will be able to see traces of my parents, my upbringing, and all the rest. But it allowed me the freedom then to make all the characters dirty and to have fun with them. There's a wonderful French term. It's called roman à la clé, which means a book with the key. And basically, it's something similar to what I did. It's, you know, you give the writer a key, and you kind of say, look, this is fictional, but it's also based on real life. So you then imagine that these fictional characters are the real characters. You know, and a lot of that is, you know, often to do with legal reasons, you know, being liable for saying, you know, but it kind of just gives the readers a key to go, okay, this is a character called Clooney, but the writer is very similar, so they'll then kind of envisage me.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of like you can tell that, you know, when you read some author's work, you know it's a fictitious character, but you can tell it's them in disguise, you know. But can I ask you, when you changed the name of people, then did the characters kind of flourished more? They came out a lot more.
Absolutely, and you know, in those early drafts, I was being very open and honest about my own experiences and life experiences as a gay man growing up in Navan, as an experience as an actor in Ireland. I was, you know, being very open about it, but I was also phrasing it in a certain light, you know, that maybe I was being very cautious about it, and I still was trying to show my struggles in a positive light. Whereas in later drafts, I was able to kind of then get rid of that, you know, get rid of my ego of trying to present my challenges in a certain way, or me being the hero when I wasn't the hero at all, and likewise with other characters. And so it was great. It was a really interesting project to work on, to kind of start there and then to see where it kind of ended up being.
When you said there it was like auto fiction there, did you feel it was kind of a way for you to, you know, express some of your demons and get some things out there that, you know, like what I mean is possibly you were thinking, am I going to write a biographic or an autobiographic book, or is it going to be me? I'm going to be cheekily poking my head out and they go, is that Domhnall talking about himself? Or, you know what I mean? Was it a way for you to get things out there that you went through in your life?
Well, fun enough, the reason I wrote this story years ago, I was at a dinner party and I made this joke to say that I'd really make it in life as soon as I had a stalker.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine said, be careful what you wish for. So this book started off as a fantasy. If I did have a stalker, what?
Yeah.
But it was always going to be a fictional story. I don't have any stalkers.
No, oh no. Maybe you'll have one after this.
Quite possibly. So it was all, you know, a fictional narrative. But yes, as you say, I was using it as an opportunity to address, you know, moments in my life, milestones in my life, positive and negative ones, challenging ones, all the rest. And actually, a friend of mine, you know, who I mentioned earlier on, Eamon, who, you know, I met in baby infants when we were 4, you know, he read it and he was really interested to see some of the things I had talked about. And he goes, I can really see you're making peace with certain moments of your life. It was really lovely here. It wasn't very much a conscious effort to do that. It just kind of happened organically. And I've always been making peace with so many things that have happened in my life. And, you know, we all face challenges. So it was such a blessing that I had this platform to address it, but not necessarily at a conscious level. I didn't sit down to go, I need to eradicate demons from my life at all. It just happened organically. That's what I did. But he was able to identify, because I can see now, you know, you're kind of clearing out the closet a little bit with this book.
Yeah. Well, I suppose people get their own perceptions. And, you know, the one thing, you know, I would kind of, that I would think about something like that as well. You being an actor, sometimes being an actor, you're under somebody else's direction. So you're playing a character that somebody else wrote. You're trying to portray it as true to life as you can, but it's not you. So, I mean, normally in biopics, people don't play themselves. So when you get a chance to write and do a book, I mean, you can talk about your past experiences and things you've gone through, even if the character isn't you, but you're at the helm, you're writing. So you can be like, yeah, it might be me in disguise, but it's still, there's a bit of me coming out.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, you know, no matter what I'm writing, whether it's an article or whether it's a book, there'll always be me, you know, they're evident. But yeah, it was a shift in gear. You know, it's my 3rd book, and my 3 books they're all comedies. But this would be a very different type of comedy. it was a great experience, and then obviously when you release the book, you have to then support it. So I got wonderful opportunities to write about the experiences, in the media, and even that was a very kind of exciting experience to actually, then reflect on the project, reflect on the process, and to kind of to tease out various themes that I wanted to explore. And a big theme in the book is the idea of celebrity, and this obsession so many of us have about being seen, being visible, being adored, being acknowledged, and there maybe things that motivated me earlier in my career, and it was lovely to kind of make that recognition that they don't motivate me anymore. This idea of what we perceive as being successful. We talk now about how many friends does somebody have on Facebook, how many followers do they have on Instagram or Twitter and all the rest, and that to me is not a barometer of success or whatever. So these are just themes to explore, the idea that we want, often with actors and artists and people, in the media, now social, influencers, and, this idea of, adore me, love me, like me, follow me, praise me. That's definitely something I think, actors might identify with. For me, I did early, but it was very lovely to go, that doesn't interest me or motivate me at all.
Can I ask you, you mentioned there, when you were talking about like growing up in Navan and then into the acting world, as a gay man, when you look back now over the last 20 years, do you feel that Ireland has progressed a lot in its attitude towards people working in the arts, and in literature and everything, who are, let's say, because there would be the old Irish thing that people would hide things to protect their careers, but now we can be far more open about stuff. Do you feel that's progressed a lot?
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. I think Ireland now is a shining light in the world when it comes to the gay community, the LGBT community. I think we've done amazing. We've had amazing strides in the past few years. Obviously, the cherry on the cake was the marriage referendum that we had. But yeah, absolutely, it's transformative. From I was born in '82, so there's the difference between the early '80s and now. Fantastic. Oh, it's fantastic, and a lot of international countries look towards us. A lot of countries who who used to be the leaders when it came to human rights and stuff like that now turn to us, and for the gay community. Of course, there'll always be work. There'll always be room for improvement. There'll always be those who wouldn't share my experience. There'll be, gay people who would say, no, hold on a second. I still feel very oppressed and feel very all the rest. For me, my personal experience is, no, we've definitely moved ahead. And I can even see from roles, when I started off auditioning, I often got typecasted, auditioning for roles, the gay, but it was the token gay. He was never, the characters I used to read for, they were never central leading men. They were always like the gay best friend. They were stereotypes. They were kind of what, straight people perceived the gay person to be.
Where does that happen in the process? Is that they approach your agent, or the casting director has seen you in something else, or like, because it's kind of, in some way, I suppose it can be a little insulting if somebody says, oh, we think you'd be good as this gay man in this role. And you're like, why? I mean, are you trying to typecast me? What's the reason? Is it because you saw me in something else? So that must be a bit of a struggle to reason to yourself. Am I being stereotyped here?
It's a really big conversation. And, I suppose for me, I've no problem playing a character who is gay. That's something that's changed a lot. Because before is, will you play this character, this gay character? That's when it's problematic, because to me, one of the least interesting parts about a character is their sexuality. I'm much more interested in the other aspects of them. Of course, that'll influence the character, the sequel, but it shouldn't be the be all and end all. And when I first started auditioning, it was just gay, gay, gay. You'd see stage directions. He flounces here and he flounces there. There's just this nonsense that I'd no interest in. But I used to always think, well, it's safer in your hands, as in my hands, than another actor. So I would then be able to kind of, tame it a little bit and kind of make that, you know, the gay character more balanced and nuanced and, you know, interesting. But fast forward to today, you know, we see a lot of characters, gay characters, central characters being played by straight people, you know, so that's the other side of it. So you see a lot of gay actors who are, you know, not gay enough to play straight, but they're too gay to play gay. And it's just this really weird, you know, situation.
Maybe for some actors, they don't want to be always put into that role because they're like, it's, as you said, it's nothing to do with my sexuality. So then maybe there are some straight actors say, yeah, I could do that because it's a challenge for me. So, you know, maybe we have a mixture of things going on now. You know, a gay person going, no, I don't want to do that role all the time. And a straight actor going, I'd like to try that role, see what it's going to be like.
Well, I think the majority of actors, you know, who are gay would jump at the chance to play these leading roles now, because gay characters are so much more exciting. You know, obviously films like Brokeback Mountain, you know, they were game changers, and you know, a lot of gay characters now, they are the heroes of the stories. They have the struggles, and you know, we shine a light on them. We don't just allow them to be in the periphery. We have brought them front and center. So I think, you know, what I'm describing, you know, early on in my career, 20 years ago, is very different to today, because the gay characters within these scripts are so much stronger, so much more interesting, and
have more depth.
Absolutely, you know, absolutely. So it's an interesting one, because, you know, I do know a lot of, you know, characters, and it goes way beyond gay. You know, it goes, you know, in terms of gender, in terms of religion, in terms of physical, different physicalities, you know, there's so many ways that we can celebrate, you know, minority groups. And this is a great way to do it, by giving them a voice, giving them an opportunity to allow them to take on these roles. You know, of course, actors will always say, but, you know, my job is to act different characters. And, you know, Hamlet, you don't have to have a father who's killed by your uncle and all the rest.
Yeah, doesn't have to be that real.
No, not at all. These are just wonderful opportunities to make, you know, minority groups visible, you know, to give them an opportunity.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's for me, I think it's, so what you said there a minute ago, it's, you know, the great thing about, if you're a good actor, you should be able to play all types of roles, and it's nothing to do with your sexuality, like what way. If they say, oh, we want you to be more camp or whatever, and you're kind of like, well, yeah, but I'm an actor, you know, so I can be camp if you want, or I can be Bruce Willis and Die Hard. I can be whatever you want. But the point is, it's acting. It's not called sexuality. You know, it's called acting. So the good actors can do any role. And we've seen some of the best actors play some amazing roles. And those actors were not gay, and vice versa. You see, as you said, some straight men do some wonderful gay roles. So it's the job, acting. So I think nowadays it's great when you can see actors being really diverse and doing different roles, not based on their sexuality, but on their skills.
Well, you know, it's an interesting conversation again. You know, who are the people that are getting these opportunities to be diverse? And unfortunately, a lot are straight white men who are getting diverse. And you know, we've seen in the news a lot over the past few years. You know, actors like Scarlett Johansson taking on these, you know, Asian characters and all the rest. And it's like, no, let's give these other people an opportunity to get the main roles. Let Asian people, let people of colour, you know, sexuality, give them opportunities to tell their own stories. And that's, to me, what's really, really important. I'm delighted and encouraged that gay characters now are visible on screen. I just want, you know, I want women, I want gay people, I want people of colour, I want all these people to be given the same opportunities as, you know, our white heterosexual counterparts, because, you know, and it extends way beyond cinema and television. Like, you know, even in media, it's so important to have voice, you know, from those who aren't heard that often. And I think that's something we always have to ask: how can we be more inclusive? You know, because the arts is, you know, it's a business. It's called show business. I get that, but it also is a wonderful environment, you know, that celebrates the diversity. So that's something that we can never lose sight of, that we always have to kind of insist that everyone's getting an opportunity and not just.
And that's it. And the thing is now, it doesn't matter if you're a singer in a heavy metal band or you're an actor in a thing. All of these things, you can be whoever you want to be and still do your job very well. And people might never guess of your sexuality and anything. And I mean, that's the way it should be. It shouldn't, you shouldn't have to, what the role you play shouldn't define who you are, and vice versa, So I think it's great when you see somebody, and you can be shocked, like if someone said to you, oh, that guy's gay, and you're like, I wouldn't have realized, because in the past people put other people in roles that made it easy to say he's gay, he's straight, or they're transgender. So the great thing is now to surprise people and say, well, it doesn't matter anyway. It doesn't matter, because these categories in these boxes are only something our forefathers created and are, the conservative society. But for us, we have to just go, I can jump from whatever box I want to jump into. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, where I would love this conversation to go, I mean, in the world, is that, people can have ownership over their sexuality, that it doesn't become, a situation where it's like, well, why can't they be open, and why can't they, go to a red carpet event with their, partner and all the rest. I'd love for us to move away from this idea that, someone's sexuality shouldn't matter. Of course, someone's sexuality does matter. So, it defines us. Our sexuality is so part of who we are. But I'd love for the conversation that follows not to be an issue, that people don't become uncomfortable about a man talking about a man, or a woman talking about his, female partner. I'd love for us to move in that direction. But there's still a huge amount of people who, not just in the arts, but in sport and, in politics, who aren't allowed to be their true selves. They're not allowed to have their sexuality discussed and celebrated. Like, love is a wonderful, wonderful thing. It makes the world go round.
Of course. And I mean, now, in this day and age, we need more of love between people, and there's so many things we're facing, and you know what I mean? It's great. As I always think, it's good to have someone there for you. It doesn't matter who they are or what they are, as long as people are happy, and that's all that matters. So come here, let's move on a little bit. I just want to, I'm not going to keep you for too much longer, but I just want to talk about your print work with magazines and stuff, So you were working with Irish Tatler for men, and you're working with Woman's Way now. What else? What other magazines have you been working with?
Well, yeah, Irish Tatler Man is where I started. That folded, unfortunately, about 3 years ago. But that's where I started. I had such a blessing with my editor there, Alexander, and he liked what I wrote. I wrote him years ago. I did a piece about being I used to go to weddings quite a lot, and I did a piece called The Plus One about kind of anecdotes, observations and stuff. So I went to him and he said, I really like this, but I haven't got a slot for you for that, but would you want to do some other work? And that's kind of how it all started. And then within issues, I became deputy editor, and I was interviewing amazing people, and I was doing features writing. And so that was just, it was such a bizarre thing, because as an actor, you're always fighting to get jobs and all the rest. It was so unexpected and so organic. So I've kept my relationship with him. I work with him now in a fashion magazine called Futura. It's a trade magazine, so I'd still work with him a lot. But from there, I started working with Woman's Way. I have a monthly column there, which is wonderful. That's a great opportunity again to, talk about issues that are of interest to me, and topics that I think would be of interest to the readers. But for me, it's very important, as a columnist, not to turn it into like a soapbox, not for me to get on my high horse, because, a lot of the readers of Woman's Way would be people like my mother who know wonderful things. And so I don't feel that, it's my job to tell them, you should feel this and you should think that, like a lot of other columnists tend to do. I just use an opportunity to discuss and explore topics that are of interest to me, and then I will always interview the experts. I will always give them an opportunity then to say things that I could never say. Like, I'm not lots of things. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not all these other things. So but I love asking questions. You mightn't be able to tell, because I'm the interviewee, but in general, I love being where you're seated, and I love asking questions, and I love exploring and finding out new information. So I will always, ask the questions, get those insights, and share those. So I love doing that with Woman's Way. The other main magazine that I write for is a magazine called Ireland of the Welcomes. And it's not very well known in Ireland because it's largely for our American readers and British. So a lot of those who, might have left Ireland or would have strong connections to Ireland or have an interest in Ireland. So I would write, travel features. I would write, maybe about the arts, various topics. It's a bi-monthly. So that's a gorgeous magazine, a lovely magazine, beautifully laid out. So I feel very blessed, with Woman's Way and with Ireland of the Welcomes. They're magazines that I really like. I love my editors. I love the voice of the magazines. So it's such a wonderful thing for me to be a part of it.
Yes.
Has
Woman's Way changed a lot? Because obviously, the biggest demographic would be women readers, but maybe that's changed a lot too. Because, I remember you'd always be in the doctors, and you're looking for something to read, and then you see a Woman's Way magazine and you pick it up and you're reading it, So obviously men wouldn't be the biggest audience for it, but at times they might pick it up at home or in the reception or the waiting room.
Well, I can't comment on older magazines because I don't know. I do remember vividly my granny getting me to enter the competitions. They used to have a kid corner, so every week they had competitions, write poems and so that's what I remember.
Yes,
wonderfully liberal, open. They have real topical issues explored, every single issue. The voice, my voice will be very much aligned with their voice. They have this wonderful ability to embrace modernity while also celebrating traditions. Recipes, our heritage, knitting, a lot of those crafts that would have been very prevalent in Ireland decades ago. They're wonderful. They have an annual competition called Mom of the Year, and I was a judge this year. And just reading these amazing stories of women, mothers, who have sacrificed so much, but also have embraced all these other opportunities in career, in the community. So it's a really exciting magazine that manages, as I say, to combine both the old and the new. In terms of male,
was that show televised, Mom of the Year, one time? No, did that used to be on TV?
It used to be the Calergas Housewife of the Year.
That's right. I remember. Yeah, I remember.
Which is the backdrop of my second book, Colin and the Concubine. Fascinated by it, but that ended in the early 90s. But has evolved. That it's Mom of the Year, and it's interesting to see the evolution of the Housewife of the Year competition, because that obviously started in the 60s, and Woman's Way was associated, and the sponsors changed over the years. It's no longer about the woman in the home, and of course, if a woman's choice is to be in the home, that's absolutely fantastic. Should be celebrated. But also, there's so many women now who are, pursuing their career as much as they're pursuing their home life. And so that's reflected in this modern competition. It's those who also, have embraced opportunities outside of the home just as much as they have within the home. So that's a real reflection of the changing of times. So in terms of male voices, I'm not sure if, male readers would be our target. I would be a male voice within the magazine. And that's great that I have given that opportunity, to be a male voice within. And it's interesting because I obviously started with Irish Tatler Man, and that was obviously geared towards our male readers. And now Woman's Way, it's there in the title, man and woman. But we had female voices, absolutely, in Irish Tatler Man. And, to give a perspective, not to say that my column in Woman's Way is about the male perspective at all, but we did have a columnist, Tanya Sweeney, in Irish Tatler Man, who would give the female perspective on certain things. So it's great to have, a voice from, a man and a woman in a man and a woman's magazine as well, just to mix it up a little bit. So I think what it is
if your demographic is largely male or female, if you have another voice in there or more voices, then the other demographic, the opposite sex, might, when they're reading through, they might pick out your column and say, oh, and not because you're a man or whatever, but it's just, as you say, in a lot of the columnists, they could be female, and then when they're going through, like the guy in the waiting room reading the magazine, they're like, oh, who's this guy, or whatever, and it's just a different perspective, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's they're mainly my magazines: Woman's Way, Ireland of the Welcomes, and Once Upon a Time, Irish Tatler Man, which is a wonderful magazine, but it's a tricky time for magazines in general, because obviously with the growth of social media, so many of us go to Facebook or Twitter for our news, and look at the numbers of daily newspapers, weekend newspapers, magazines, they're plummeting.
The whole print industry has been really hit by digital media. And I mean, in Woman's Way, for example, do they, is there kind of a percentage of stuff they sell on print, or do they have a digital edition as well?
They do have a digital edition, absolutely. And this year it was wonderful that we did have a digital edition, because many of our readers were allowed to leave the home. They were cocooning. So we were able to access the magazine online. So there is a digital edition. There's also great website with some, not all of the articles are up on the website, social media, obviously. So Woman's Way is always looking for opportunities to connect with the readers. There's wonderful opportunities for any reader who likes to write stories, short story competitions and all the rest, and they write in letters. So it's about finding ways of remaining connected to our readers. And this year really kind of shone a light on the importance of having an online presence, and that's across the board. Retail, those who were able to kind of weather the storm were those who had websites in place that they could then trade online. And I know the government now has since supported a lot of retailers, smaller businesses, to get themselves online. And that's really, really important, moving forward.
I mean, that's really good. And it's good because it's just a case now of older people and people who wouldn't have had an online presence to adapt themselves, because now obviously we're living in a more virtual world and things are changing, So for you now, in the next few months or a few years, it's more Ross na Rún, obviously, yeah. And, do you have any other kind of acting jobs that you can do while you're doing Ross na Rún, or is it very difficult to do both?
No, I think if this year has taught us anything, it's, any plans you might have, good luck. Obviously the world just turned on its head this year. So I just always kind of look at the next couple of months ahead. And, so much of my work would have been around travel. I would do a lot of travel, and a lot of that would have been abroad. So I'm not sure, where that's all at the moment. I was trying to organise a press trip to Athlone, to Westmeath the other day, and then I had to kind of postpone it because, I just don't know.
You're like, I can't even, I'm thinking about going to France and I can't even get to Westmeath.
I can't even get to Westmeath. And that's where we're at. That's where, I was in Longford recently on a press trip, and that almost fell apart at the last minute, because obviously the level, they're different in Spain, but in Ireland we've, level 1 to 5, and that means that hotels can only open for certain. Anyway, you know what it is. So I can't make any long-term plans at all. I have a book. My 4th book I just finished that first draft. So I'll focus in on that in January. I have some other lovely little things happening, in the future, hopefully.
And can I ask you? I've seen there. Obviously, your partner is from Venice or whatever. Do you have a house there, or you travel there a lot?
Well, his family is still very much there. So we have stayed there for long periods of time in the past. It's it's Venice. It's just like one of the most magnificent in the world. It's like an outdoor museum. But it's very surreal at the moment, because speaking of Athlone, Athlone and Venice are kind of in around the same size.
Yeah.
But Venice gets 30 million. That's a conservative estimate. 30 million tourists a year. The whole island of Ireland gets in and around 8 or 9. So it's extraordinary the number of people who are there in a place. at the size of that alone, so fragile because it's so old. And, as you know about Venice with the canals and the bridges and the buildings. But all those tourists have vanished. So
Yeah,
St.
but
Mark's,
I heard a rumor as well, like they said that they were going to have to reduce the number of tourists because the tourists were destroying the city in Venice.
well, look, that kind of mass tourism is always going to be problematic, no matter the city. But the city of Venice, it's like a museum. So you really have to handle with care. And not just because of the age of the buildings, but also in terms of the lagoons. They suffer very badly from high tides, which in itself is hugely problematic. Like water can destroy buildings like no other element. So it's a very, very fragile city. And obviously, up until this year, the cruise ships, that was very much a part of, the Vista, the daily Vista in Venice. But that in itself brings a lot of problems as well because they're so big and they come so close to St. Mark's Square. So this year has kind of given Venice an opportunity to breathe. There's these wonderful,
of course, yeah,
of the fish, the wildlife returning to Venice for the first time. You could actually see through the water of the canals, which you couldn't for years.
It was so dirty and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's given the city a chance just to take a deep breath. Yeah, I'm hopeful now that all of that's not going to be lost. In the years to come, I hope that they.
So you might get back there maybe in a few months or go back to visit maybe.
Yeah, no, I think we might. Well, that's the hope. We might uproot for a little while. Because obviously, travel is still very much a no-no. So the idea of going away for a weekend, that's just not something that's being encouraged or allowed. So, if we are to go over, we'll probably go over for a few months. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Yeah.
A question I want to ask you. So, for you now, because I mean, you've done so much. You've accomplished quite a lot with your acting career, and you're on your fourth novel now, and you've done so many things to do with tourism and the magazines and everything. So, what do you see as being a great ambition for you in the future, an aspiration? What would you love to do?
Oh, right. Well, it's funny because what you've listed there would all be related to my career, and I think that's something that definitely shifted. That a lot of my goals now aren't career related. I think in my early days, everything would have been very much associated with whether I got a job or how well the job went or la la la. Like, to me, I feel like I've done so many lovely, wonderful things, and I've worked with so many wonderful people, and I've received so many opportunities to tell stories. That for me, I'm just really focusing on my relationship, my family. I'm just on just the simple things in life that are so important and can be overlooked time and time again. And I think again, the lessons of this year are that we do really need to value and cherish those things because, careers are fantastic and, I'm still very ambitious, I hope. But, they're not the be all and end all. And often in this game, you can completely spend your entire day, your entire year just focusing on career, and then overlook other lovely things there in front of you, like relationships and like family. So that's something that I'm going to really embrace. Even more so in the coming months, just the lovely things in life.
Well, that's brilliant. I mean, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's been really interesting to talk to you, and we'll talk again in the future, I hope, sometime. But I want to wish you luck with your next book. And, we're going to plug your latest book at the moment. And, good luck with the rest of your filming and everything this year and, into next year because you're finished now. But thanks so much, Domhnall. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And I want to wish you a happy Christmas and wish you a happy New Year as well.
Thank you so much. And I wish you all the same. And thank you so much for wanting me on your podcast. I'm thrilled and it's been great. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Domhnall O'Donoghue. That was an interesting conversation, and we wish Domhnall all the best in the future. Okay, so let's talk about next week's guest. Next week we have Mr. Dave Joyce, and he is from Dave Joyce's Martial Arts Academy in Galway. And Dave has been a lifelong martial arts instructor and ambassador for the martial arts in Galway, Ireland, and abroad. And Dave is going to talk to us about his teachings and all the things he's learned over the years, and it's going to be a really interesting chat, so we hope you join in and enjoy the show. That'll be next Friday. Thank you. See you folks. Take care of yourself. Good night.